Some people say that coriander smells and tastes like soap. And that is genetic. It's part of your genetic makeup. Other people say that it smells like stink bugs. And both are right. And it's down to the chemistry. And what's fascinating is that we know that coriander seeds were sold in Pompeii just before the eruption, probably for the nervous system. And today we're going to talk about what else do we know about coriander seed essential oil. Adam, what do you know about coriander seed?
Well, I'm really happy to be back, and we're kind of going old school where we're diving into just one oil. We realized after we did over 100, we were kind of going back through the library, and there's a few that we missed out. So I'm excited to talk about coriander seed. Now, we have already talked about this plant, though, but we've talked about the leaf oil, and that is an oil that is very fresh and clean and green and has some similarities, but also some big differences. With coriander seed, I think the seed oils are really, really interesting. And I love looking at them on this holistic level because seed oils are to do with the element of akasha or ether or spirit, and they can really unlock something in us. And later on in this conversation, I'm really looking forward to exploring what I like to use coriander seed for in that kind of holistic aspect. But what I'm really find really interesting, and I'd love you to kind of elaborate more on the chemistry of it a bit, is I think it's a really great sleep oil, but it's not probably an oil that people would think of with sleep, even though it's got some really great chemistry. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. So actually, the chemistry is really quite straightforward. It's not a complex oil. Depending on where it's grown and how it's been distilled, it will be mainly linalool, which is a constituent that is sedative and relaxing, as well as antispasmodic and antidepressant. So even in just that one sentence, you should be able to go, oh, okay, there's lots of things that I can think of to use it for here. It's also quite rich in delta carine, which is usually found in conifer oils, interestingly. But this chemistry, even though it's quite straightforward, does mean that it is prone to oxidizing quickly. So what I've noticed is I don't see quite often in people's recipes that they should add an antioxidant to this particular oil. But if you're making an oil that preparation that you're not going to use straight away, you would need to use an antioxidant because oils that are high in linalool require that. But yeah, I agree. Good for sleeping, definitely. What
Well,
else?
the interesting thing is, I think, with sleep though, is when we look at we've got like lavender that's got linalool in it, we've got bergamot, we've got all these lovely kind of sleep oils. Coriander seed probably isn't going to win the award for best smelling sleep oil of the year. So, how would you kind of use it? Would you use it in a blend with some other oils, or I like to actually mix a couple of drops in with a carrier oil or a carrier cream and massage it on my feet. And there's kind of holistic reasons why I might do that as well. But how would you recommend using it for that calming, sedative sleep aspect?
Well, I think you've missed a really vital aspect of aromatherapy over essential oil preparations, if you like. And that I've already alluded to the fact that some people smell it differently to others. And so it's really quite difficult to be able to give a prescriptive blend with coriander seed, because if you smell it like stink bugs, and I'll talk about the stink bugs in a little while, but if you smell it like that way, and so or bed bugs, actually it's bed bugs, if you like imagine the smell of bed bugs, that's not going to help you sleep, right? So you're definitely, so you wouldn't even use it. But if somebody sort of perceives the scent like I do as quite earthy and rich and sensuous, I like to blend it with ylang-ylang oil. I think that they smell beautiful. And actually, if you look at the chemical profile of linalool, linalool's supposed to smell like lavender because lavender's so rich in linalool. That's what people recognize. I don't smell it as lavender, but linalool is also really high in in your ylang-ylang. So those two kind of marry up quite nicely in a blend. But really, you want to be using flower oils or resins or woods to really kind of bring out the rich base part, the relaxing part of the blend to use it. Yeah.
So I think it is a really good one to kind of be that base note or that more grounding earthiness with other sleep oils. Probably not one you're just going to pop in a diffuser by itself, is it?
No, because it does smell like curry. You know, it's the most important part of a masala curry, and that's what you will remember if you are used to living in a society where they do cook curries. That's what your brain will go. Oh, I can smell curry. So yeah, you need to kind of bring that aspects down and sort of link in with the floral aspect, almost like as if it was a perfume.
Mm. Now, apart from the sleep and the relaxation aspects of it, that's probably as far as I would reach for it. And I do like to, as I said before, apply it to the soles of my feet for that kind of grounding earthiness and sleep. You hear a little bit about it being supportive of digestion and a little bit supportive of detoxification. But I'm really intrigued what else you have in store for us in the physical attributes.
Yeah, so I've heard you say detoxification about coriander several times. It's not really an aspect I would go to. I remember you saying heavy metals before.
Mm, mm.
More, I would say, if the digestive system has become stagnant, that would be the main reason why I would use coriander seed. It's very carminative. So if somebody is like, "Oh my God, I've just got really bad wind," or my stomach's just turning over, I feel nauseous, just like we only use the smallest tiny amount because I mean maximum dilution is 3%, but if you think about how we've talked about how it's so strong smelling, we only need the smallest amount. But just a drop can be really great in a blend to do like an abdominal massage to calm down tummy cramps, acid, all of those things really just become calmer. If we want the belly to become calmer, then this is one of the great oils to use, like chamomile, like dill. Um, it's got a really different kind of energy to peppermint. Peppermint is also really good for the digestion, but I think that the peppermint is stimulant, whereas this one is really relaxing, calming. Just, oh my goodness, I just want it to all just settle down. Um, so that would be the main area that I would use it. And of course, if somebody has, it is very slightly laxative. So if somebody has got a constitution where the digestion has slowed down, then of course they are going to become toxic. The whole body, it's supposed to have got out. The waste products are supposed to have gone out. So from that point of view, yes, detoxicant. But I don't know about the other aspects. So that would be the main one that I would use for digestion, really. So how do you use it for digestion yourself?
Not greatly, no. I find, I remember I learned recently from a traditional Chinese medicine approach, but I think we can translate it to oils. And like often when the belly is uncomfortable, he likes to ask the question, what would give it some soothing? Does it need like an ice pack or a heat pack? And if it's heat, then this doctor would recommend ginger. And if it needs cooling, he'd recommend peppermint. But listening to you talk about it, sometimes it's not that we want to change in temperature. We just want to kind of sedate it or calm it, as you said. And I think maybe coriander seed would be really great in those cases where it's just like, I just need it to calm down. It's not a temperature thing. It's a calmative. So I'd probably slot coriander seed in that way.
Well, no, I agree with what your TCM teacher said because it is warming. It is warming and cosseting and soothing. It's like a big hug, really.
Mm.
And all he's doing is seeing the energetics in a different aspect to me. It's like I look at the lens that way and he's looking at it that way. And I think that's part of the danger of learning from somebody without having the actual oil in your hand, of learning the properties of an oil cerebrally rather than actually engaging with it, when you learn herbal medicine, the traditional way to learn herbal medicine is to say, I'm studying with that plant for a year. And well, it's a year and a day actually. And so you learn it from every aspect. What does it taste like when I use it under this moon, under this sort of aspect of the stars, astral herbalism, as well as your physical stuff. We don't tend to sort of propagate that as an idea in aromatherapy, but I do think that that is how I work. You can come to an oil one day and it will treat your constitution as it meets you. That's what an essential does. Oil does it meets you and it engages there. But a week from now, my constitution will be different, and a month from now it'll be different again. And so, rather than sort of taking on board the teachings of loads of people and just listening to a video like we do and saying, okay, I've absorbed that. Really, you should be sitting there and going, all right, coriander seed. If I got that in my box, right, I'm going to listen, smelling that oil, engaging with that oil, sinking into the oil, and really experiencing from that point of view. But I think the energetics of the plant would be warming, in answer to what you said. Yeah.
I think it's so important what you pointed out there, that there are, lots of different sources where you can get information about essential oils and aromatherapy. But, just like when we go to a doctor or a GP and they prescribe something, they go, give this a shot. And if it doesn't work out, we'll try something else in a couple of weeks. Come back and we'll try something else. We are all unique, where we've got unique genetics, we've got unique chemical composition and so on. And so just because, I'm hearing stories occasionally, lavender wakes people up. I know one person's husband who likes to have a big inhalation of peppermint because it clears his mind and his airways, and he can fall asleep once he's had his peppermint at night. For me, that's what I reach for when I'm falling asleep. So I think gather all the information you can, but like you said, you've got to put in the center of that your own personal experience and let us guide you on ways to work with the oils. But then you've got to kind of write the final chapter for yourself, don't you?
And I came up with a word in the summer last year, and it really sits well with me. I invented the word, but it's aroma sentience. Like when I smell that oil, this is how I feel, and
Mm.
and this is what I remember, and this is what I think of, and this is what I experience, and this is the place it takes me to, rather than, oh, this is what that oil does. It's a completely different place. It's coming from the center of the body, and I think that with the advent of us learning off the internet rather than learning in-person workshops, that is really how the learning about aromatherapy has shifted, and I think it's deficient because of it.
No, very much so. So let's dive in a bit more to the holistic aspects of the oils. Where I love coriander seed, I mentioned before, it is a seed oil. So I find that all the seed oils and all the resin oils work really well with the Akasha energy. Now, in very different ways. The Akasha resin oils are very much about checking in with our core, whereas the key word that I use when it comes to seed oils is potentiality. Just like a seed holds the embodiment of a plant or a tree, when we talk about the acorn becoming the oak, that type of thing, that's what seeds do. And so seed oils are going to embody that as well, to wake something up within you. Now, what I find with coriander seed, it has this, and it's interesting. We were having a chat before we started recording that you were talking to Debbie Adderby and she said, wear red. I'm wearing red. For me, although it's quite calmative, I think what it actually does, it works really well in awakening the inner warrior self. Now, not in a battle kind of way, but more in a battle ready kind of way. Let me explain myself. There are a lot of people out there who are always worrying about everyone else. They feel guilty about worrying about themselves, and they give, they give, they give. A lot of women, a lot of mothers do that to the point where they are depleted. And so they are not giving their best to the world. Interestingly, though, if we were a warrior, we would have to be at our best if we were going into battle, not at our worst. And so coriander seed, in its really calmative and nurturing and supporting way, goes, it's time for you to be not selfish, but self-full, to make sure you don't feel guilty, looking after yourself, building yourself up, and restoring yourself to the point where you are giving your best to the world rather than giving from a depleted, empty cup. And so I think that coriander seed and a relationship with coriander seed over that over a period of time can really help to shift that so that you are caring more for yourself and being a better version of yourself. So I love it for that.
Yeah, I think that's good. I would have said that about black pepper. That's how I work with black pepper. They kind of have that same sort of energetic to them, that they're warming and supportive. From my point of view, I think that it's interesting to think about it from, first of all, an Egyptian point of view, but then also from an Indian point of view. So first of all, we know that the coriander is a really, really ancient plant. And interestingly, the name tells us a great deal about them. So Coriandrum is named after these bed bugs, stink bugs that I was talking about, because when you go near a bed bug and you frighten it, it secretes all of these aldehydes, and it makes this smell that's exactly like coriander. And so that's why people associate it with it. It's so associated with it that actually coriandrum, that's what it means, stink bug. So when you look at sort of medieval texts, they'll talk about how it is so smelly, how it's like bed bugs. Well, hopefully we don't have so many bed bugs as we had before, so we've kind of got disassociated from that. But also, when you look at the rest of the Latin name, the Latin name is Coriandrum sativum. Well, sativum means cultivated. So therefore not a wild plant, but something that has been deliberately sown for a reason. Well, if you look back at ancient Egypt, you will see that in Tutankhamun's tomb, there were offerings of coriander seeds. And if you read Pliny, Pliny says, well, coriander, he says, first of all, he says the best coriander comes from Egypt. That's what he says to us. And he says it's really, really good for the bites and for taming the two-headed serpent. And I was like, wait, what? What is a two-headed serpent? Well, actually, it's got two aspects. So the first is that there was like a legless lizard, like a slow worm called something like, I wrote it down and left the piece of paper away, can't remember, amphibie something. But also there was a god called Nehebkau, Nehebkau, which means gather of the car, the two spirits. So his job was to bring the spirit car back into the body so that it could enjoy itself when it came back into the tomb. And this snake god was seen as originally a really quite a chaotic force, that he had been in the waters of Nun at the time of creation, but then the Artem had tamed him by sticking a fingernail in his spine and tamed him, and he'd become this protector of the gods of the sun. And when the spirit, it's mentioned in the Book of the Dead, when the spirit has to stand before the judges of Ma'at, he's one of the 42 judges, and he says something akin to, did you get above yourself, or were you kind of quite innocent in life? Something akin to that. And so he also gives this milky drink as part of the sort of journey into the afterlife. And what's interesting is, if you look in the Bible, it talks about, the story in the Exodus is about the manna from heaven. I don't know if you remember the story. And the manna from heaven is described as being milky, just like the coriander seeds. So it's like this beautiful abundance, but protective spirit that helps you to come back into your body and enjoy the good part of life when you want to come back into this 3D world. So it's all about enjoying 3D world. And then if you look at it from an Indian point of view, it's called Danya in India, and it's given as an offering to Lakshmi, and sometimes also as a an offering to Krishna. But in both cases, it's about thank you for the abundance you brought into my life. Thank you for everything beautiful. And also, it's like a blessing for the harvest. So when the harvest comes in, it's like, thank you for everything that you brought beautiful into our life. And thank you, we've got so much to eat from this. And this idea of the seed, you're quite right about having potentiality, but for something like this, I think it really sits on the cusp of sort of Pisces, Aries, is exactly kind of this time of year, isn't it? We've just gone past it, where it's the death, rebirth. You know, we're burying the seeds. This is the death of the plant. We're burying them and something new comes from it. And so this idea of when things die, there is still something beautiful to be had. So I think that in a situation where life feels pretty awful, maybe you've had a time with the eclipse and the eclipse has taken stuff away, coriander's very good at being able to say, but look what's beautiful left. Look what we can work with. So yeah, I think
And
it's a
I think
lovely
even
oil.
tying those two ideas together of like when often when we've gone through a challenging time, our attention has been scattered. Do you know what I mean? We've been focusing on everything that's been out there. What maybe it's been, you've had a sick parent who's finally passed after you've been looking after them and running them around for a couple of years, or a relationship's ended, or a job, or that. And it's almost as though we need to come back to ourselves as well. So I think remembering the beauty of within, I think would be something that coriander seed is really helpful for.
Yeah, I definitely draws the energy within. And actually, you mentioned, I'd said, Deb had said to me, well, wear red because it's really sexy and it improves sex drive. It's really it's really aphrodisiac. Well, that wouldn't be something that I would use it for, but I can really see how it has that cosseting sense of like almost just being really hugged and like, oh yeah, I do want to just kiss you. Do you know what I mean? It's like that bringing back into yourself. Yeah.
And it is interesting that you brought up that aphrodisiac aspect of it because the seeds were often used to flavor wines in the past to induce lust in someone. So I guess it's quite interesting. It's like some of our other oils, like ylang ylang, that are both calmative, but also will evoke that sexual arousal and help as an aphrodisiac as well. And I guess coriander seed kind of jumps into that as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think if we go back to the idea of like TCM, this is where you started. TCM's all about shifting energy, smoothing energy, making energy move faster. And so, yeah, if you've got a blockage in your intestine and you haven't been to the toilet for a really long time, you will not feel sexy. But
Mm.
like, and as soon as that shifts and that energy moves through you, and you have that sort of, then of course, when energy shifts through you, it does feel more exciting, more more vibrant, more alive, and it does have that aphrodisiac quality. Yeah.
I'm Elizabeth Ashley, UK Director for the National Association of Holistic Aromatherapy and founder of the Aromatic Mystery School, where essential oils meet the deeper, more mystical side of healing. Here you'll explore the spiritual, emotional and energetic dimensions of plants and learn how to weave them into your own rituals and well-being practices. If you're ready to work in a way that nourishes both your soul and your senses, join us at the Aromatic Mystery School. The link's right below.
Now, I've got a bit of a loaded question for you, but is it an oil that when you are pregnant you could feel comfortable using?
Well, why is it loaded?
Well, because in the past it was said that a woman who consumed coriander seed while she was pregnant was bound to have a genius child. And so I'm like,
Yeah,
well,
okay.
maybe you want to be rubbing it on your feet while you're pregnant.
Okay, so actually, so I'm going to do a little bit of of an advert then for Jane Lawson, because Jane Lawson's got a really good new book out. Can't remember exactly the title of it, but it's about poisons, and she talks about how you really shouldn't transpose uh, like herbal medicine directly onto essential oils. because of course coriander in a having like a bit of coriander seed in a curry is really different to putting loads and loads of coriander seed oil on yourself. The distribution of, if for no other reason, the distribution of how much of the chemicals are in there is really, really different. So by all means, eat your coriander seeds when you're pregnant. And you can safely use the essential oil after 16 weeks of pregnancy. But and you know, if you are feeling quite nauseous, you know, and you feel very, very bloated, it might be an oil that you would go for. But I have to say, as somebody who has been pregnant more than once, the whole thing of having strong tastes in my mouth when I was pregnant was just appalling to me. Yeah, it just makes you, it's too much. So I would say, yeah, try it for your clever child. I think it'll probably repeat on you.
Okay, maybe that wasn't the most clever idea I've ever had. Fair enough. Now, we always like to talk a little bit about astrology. Have you given it any thought on what you would associate with astrologically?
Well, I did a little bit. I looked in my mum's book, The Garden of Eden, because as you know, she puts everything under astrology, and she has only put coriander rather than coriander leaf. I don't think when this was written there was a coriander leaf oil, so I'm going to suggest that it's coriander seed. And she puts it under Mercury, and I was like, really? I don't get that. So I'm going to dismiss that, and I'm going to say I feel that it's Venus, really, to be honest. What about you?
Interesting. I'm going to disagree with your mother. I'm going to disagree with you. And I'm going to go for an asteroid. This is one I actually attribute to Vesta. I like the idea of it's kind of, Vesta is very much about coming back to ourselves. You know, she represents a virgin. And you know, one thing that was pointed out to me in a teaching recently that was like I knew it, but I didn't know it, is that in the past, a virgin wasn't someone who had never had sex. They were someone who had never taken a partner. So they were basically an independent woman. And that's what Virgo basically represents as well. So Vesta is very much that. She was, you know, her priestesses were still very sexually active, but they didn't have partners. And so I find Vesta really helps us to wake up that flame within. And I think coriander seed can help us to do that as well and be more loyal to ourselves and nurture that fire. So I love working it when I'm doing Vesta work really nicely.
I'm going to absolutely disagree with you because no, they were virgins in the chaste sense. In fact, they were buried alive if they were found to have had a sexual partner. So they definitely weren't. So what? So you got a slight. So what you're talking about is Parthenos, and Parthenos does mean virgin, but and or actually sometimes it can mean not had a child. But in the case of the Vestal Virgins, they were on fear of death for taking partners, and they had to be entirely pure. And you've picked an oil that we've said is aphrodisiac, so I'm going to say no. I disagree with that. Sorry.
I'm trying to remember what my source was, but reading about where they were actually they would take part in fertility rituals. And
that doesn't mean to say they had sex.
Pardon?
That doesn't mean to say that they had sex.
Okay, fair enough. Got you. Well, that they often would. Okay, fair enough. We'll have to.
And the fertility rituals were often to do with the grain, and so they made a special kind of like powder called salsa mole, which was how they ground up the barley to be put onto the top of the sacrificial offerings. And so that is considered to be a fertility ritual. Definitely, no, not sexual priestesses in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, well, we've got three people. You're saying Venus, your mum's saying Mercury, and I'm saying Vesta. Let the debate go under in the comment section. Let's see what everyone else resonates coriander seed with. Let's see how we go with chakra today. What chakra would you associate it with?
Well, I think sort of the lower three. I would go. It's quite grounding, and the fact that it's to do with digestion and elimination says root chakra. I also think that it has an effect upon the sacral chakra because it has that lovely sense of cosseting and sensuality, but also solar plexus because it is digestive. What's your thoughts?
Definitely a base chakra. Again, coming back to that core seed element of coming back to oneself and finding that safety and security in oneself, I think is really important, and Coriander Seed can help you with that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lovely walk. It's definitely about bringing the energy down into the body. I think it's a really lovely oil. I like it a lot, and I think it's quite an interesting oil that definitely people should study if they're working as an aromatherapist, just to kind of understand how different people experience it. As I said at the beginning about the some people smell it like soap. It's because there's like a particular genetic mutation on one of the olfactory receptors, if I remember rightly, OR6A2, which is on the 11th chromosome. And there's something even more interesting, which is not necessarily related to coriander. But what they've discovered is that particular gene, the particular olfactory receptor, macrophages that are part of the immune system, and they are to do with overcoming pathogens. They've discovered that macrophages have this particular equivalent of the OR6A2 receptor, the olfactory receptor, and the macrophages can actually smell disease in the body using that receptor. And specifically, it looks for octane, and octane can be to do with tumours, and sometimes it can be to do with diabetes. And this particular agent is being explored as a way to maybe be able to help diabetes. So it was very interesting to know that it does more than just soapy coriander.
Now, you mentioned before that if you're an aromatherapist, it's an oil definitely worth, experimenting with, seeing how different clients work with it. Another famous question that we like to discuss is, do you think that everyone at home, the at-home aromatherapist or essential oil lover, do they need to have coriander seed in their collection?
Yes, I think it should be one of the first oils that you work with. Because I think that it's one of those, because there's so many different reactions to it, that you should get used to. How does it feel in my body, but how do other people react to it as well? Because it's like you said about, well, how do you blend it? You could blend it 100 different ways for 50 different people, because some will go, oh, I smell something completely different in there. And it really helps you to experiment with scent. And so, and over and above everything, that's what an aromatherapist should know how to do.
Very true, very true. One final thing I will add as well is I've launched a brand new online community, and we're talking about the seasons of the year. Obviously, for those watching in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment, you're just beyond the spring equinox and you're celebrating all the beautiful warmer weather. But here in the Southern Hemisphere, we are emerging into those cooler seasons and cooler days. And this is a really good time to start drawing within oneself and kind of becoming a bit more introspective. And we've been talking a lot in the Southern Hemisphere community side of the group about working with oils, and coriander seed is one of them that came up, along with things like cedarwood and so on. So I think it's a nice kind of one for bringing that kind of aspect at different seasons of the year. And I will have a bit of a promo at the end of this video that will talk a little bit more about the Living with Nature collective. People interested in the coming and checking it out and having a bit of a 7-day free trial and look around as well. And I know you're in there a bit as well, Liz.
Yes, I've enjoyed being in there, meeting everybody new. So I'm going to say hello to all my new people in there. And yeah, it's a nice place to hang out.
Very much so. So we'll be back next week. We've got another couple of single oils that we worked out that we didn't talk about. But if there is one that you would love to hear about and we haven't discussed it yet, that's what that comment section is for. Pop it down there and we'll make sure we cover it ASAP before we dive into how we can use essential oils in different magical ways as well. We'll be back very, very soon. Until then, take care and blessed be.
Bye-bye.
Life moves fast. There's constant noise, urgency, and pressure, and so much happening in the world right now that can leave you feeling depressed. drained, defeated. Somewhere amongst all the noise, you feel a quiet calling within, suggesting that something is missing. Like you've drifted away from what really matters. But nature hasn't gone anywhere. She's still there, waiting for you to return. That's why the Living with Nature Collective exists. A global, interactive community of like-minded people. Your tribe. Discover how to return to living in flow with the seasons. Blossoming, shining, releasing and pausing with the land. Each week, you'll discover simple ways to connect with crystals, essential oils, astrology, the moon, animal wisdom, angels, and more. If you've been looking for something, you've found it. Step back into the garden, the forest, the ocean. Join the Living with Nature Collective today.
There's a lot happening in the world right now. There's wars, there's financial pressures, there's health concerns, and all of this can be quite overwhelming. Just open up social media and you're going to be subjected with all these different things which can kind of drag you into more and more gloom. I've been reflecting on this recently, and then I think about when I just step out my own back door and immerse myself in nature. Nature helps us to find peace, harmony, and to put everything into perspective. Recently, I've wanted to try and help people to engage a bit more with nature through different gifts of nature, such as essential oils and crystals and so on. But being able to stretch out and reach people that way is often through that overwhelming social media. So I've come up with a solution. I've created a collective, a community where we can all gather and we can share our experiences with our oils, with our crystals, with nature, as the animals sing and dance and talk to us in different ways. And I'd like to invite you to join this community. It's called the Living with Nature Collective, and it is available to you to come in and interact and meet like-minded people. Our life is generated by what we give attention to, and it's time to start giving more attention to nature in a way that you're not surrounded by other barrages of information. I'd like to offer you a 7-day free trial for my new collective, and if you look at the link below, you can click today and check it out. Come in, introduce yourself, meet other people, and be able to experience live classes, pre-recorded classes, conversations, polls, work out what's happening astrologically, what crystals are the best for you right now, and have your questions answered by me and other experts as well. I'm really excited to launch this new initiative of the Living with Nature Collective, so please check out the link below, come say hi, and I look forward to seeing you there.